I have a saying, which is great musicians don't retire. They keep playing or composing until the last note of their last great masterpiece hits the page and they drop dead, preferably of consumption, or alternately syphilis. Black Star is the perfect closing to an incredible career. David Bowie's music was distinctly not bad, and you should feel good because you still get to enjoy it. Let all the children boogie.
Something I want to get into which relates to this, because we've basically been talking about, which is good because I've really been meaning to get into some of the stuff where we're talking about the general idea of like criticizing music, opinion versus, objective information. And another interesting thing, and also just context and how, like, right, you can totally be like, yeah, the Beatles are great. I totally get it. I don't need to hear you talk about it anymore. You know what I mean? Like some people, you're just like, I don't need to hear about how great that is anymore. Yeah. Similar to like, you may get like some similar to some people if they're like, I think the Beatles are overrated, and it's okay to think they're overrated too. Like they can be just as influential as they are. And 50, 60 years later, it's okay for someone to be like, I don't care for it.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Everybody loves the Beatles. It's not for me. That's fine, And because think about how horrible it would be if, like, everyone on the planet liked one band and then you were the only one who didn't.
Did you see the Lego movie?
Yes.
Everything is awesome.
Yes.
Isn't this song great?
So when I first heard about that, and I didn't get it, and it sounded annoying, and then I saw the movie, and I realized how brilliant and subversive it is.
I know, right?
And I was
and
like,
it speaks volumes.
Right. It was so good. Yeah. I did
mean,
not
it's
get
like
it.
I heard, what I can hear a lot of what my neighbors do.
Yeah.
Like, and their music. So I remember one night, because, for anybody listening, I've been kind of staring at the same four walls for almost 2 months now.
Yeah.
It's coming up for 2 months, and it drives you insane. But one night, I was here, and I heard, hello, it's me, like the Adele thing.
Yeah.
And then after, and I distinctly knew it wasn't Adele, I heard it again, somebody else doing it. And then I heard it again, somebody else doing it. And I was like, what the fuck? Really? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, despite the fact that it's very obviously very annoying, because the thing is so overplayed.
Yeah.
Like, everybody apparently likes that song. I liked it the first time I heard it too. It's a very nice song. Thank you for writing it, Adele.
Right.
And for writing most of your songs about those boyfriends that you're imminently going to break up with. I kind of think it's your own plan and you just do it and then you make, it sells more.
Yeah.
Not really. That's a joke. Sorry, Adele. But God,
well,
if everyone likes that, that's something very close to that. Everything is awesome.
And it's interesting you bring that up because that was the new Adele song. I think is a perfect example of 4 certain things I want to say about how I evaluate music.
Oh, okay.
Kind of, or how I guess judge is the right how I judge music. But
Simon Cowell here.
So let me back up for a second because I also wanted to say that with Everything is Awesome, one of my favorite things is that before the song actually comes in the movie, is he's reading like the instructions of what he's supposed to do, and one of them is listen to popular music.
Yeah, right.
And that's such a perfect summary of that because it's just like, look, just listen to this. Just listen to the same crap everyone else listens to. And don't have any crazy ideas.
Yeah, right.
All right. Just like, I mean, shut up and listen to popular
music. You're not
music.
saying that there's some like conspiracy theory going on, but it's
no.
just
I'm saying it's. Wait, I'm saying it's not a theory. It's the truth.
There is a conspiracy.
Open your eyes, people. They're playing you. No, it's.
So what are like the 4 factors that you?
Okay,
you
so
use?
here's the thing, and this is with the Adele thing. Okay, so first of all, I've been trying to think of like the right terminology for this, but I don't
just
have
say
it.
in my
so,
opinion before.
Right,
and then
right.
No one will get
this
off.
is just a very subjective thought process that I want to talk about, and so keep in mind that's what it is. So there's several layers in which you can evaluate music. First of all, there's the general idea that music is music, okay? Which is, again, part of my, like, people get too hung up on genres, especially when...
Labels?
Yeah, labels, genres, especially when sometimes the labels are not practical or don't actually give you any useful information.
Right.
And sometimes the difference between two styles of music is as simple as like, well, this one has heavy guitars and this one doesn't. But if you traded instruments or like traded tones with a different band,
classical to metal,
you'd be exactly. You'd be doing the same kind of thing. So
your first one is actually not necessarily factoring a point; it's to negate something.
Right. So let's start.
That's cool.
Start broad. We'll start broad, which is that music is music. Which also means that people have this thing where, like, Rich talked about this, and I think you said something earlier that kind of relates to it, which is people, similar to the classical music thing, is that people are afraid to listen to things they don't think they'll understand.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You can listen to crazy complicated music. You don't have to understand it in an intellectual, complicated, microscopic way.
No, because initially, before we were educated, we just let it wash over us as
right.
a feeling.
And the reason I got into crazy complicated music is because I heard Rush. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew it sounded cool as shit.
Yeah.
And I wanted more of it. And I wanted more of my music to have more of that in it. And I read a Zappa interview, which summed this up really well, because he talks about, doing the type of music he does, which is very odd and outside, versus doing more popular stuff. And he actually had a kind of different... See, my thought is, I'm always like, I think more people should listen to crazy, complicated, difficult music, even if that's not what they make, because it may give them an idea and it might make their music a little more interesting.
Yeah.
His view is more the opposite, which is that if you don't want to get crazy out there, then don't. Just stick with your straightforward bonk, bonk, bonk music, because that's what you're going to get a job doing.
Yeah.
And he has a very good point about that as well.
Yeah.
So
it's like, you're a musician. What's your backup plan?
Right. But what he said that made a lot of sense was that if you're playing, like you're playing like crazy polyrhythms, like 5/4 or 3/4, and you're switching those up within the same bar or something.
Yeah.
He's like, that's all well and good, but nobody's going to know that's what it is. They're just going to know it sounds weird. Yeah. And that's fine. It's going to sound like you intended it to sound, and they don't need to intellectualize that for it to have the same effect in their brain.
Right.
And so the problem is that the average person doesn't know this, and so they're afraid of music that is perceived as like snooty intellectual music.
Right.
So, it's a good thing to keep in mind that, and this is part of my thing now too, which is that I've personally kind of tried to like remove my genre hangups. So I tried to remove my genre hangups so that I'm more open-minded to different styles of music, partially based on this idea I have, which is that there are no bad genres.
So that's the first point. There are no bad genres.
Only bad musicians.
Oh, that's wow. Okay, I like that.
That's my dickhead version of it.
So point one, no, just say it. It's awesome. So point one, there are no bad genres.
There are no bad genres, only bad musicians.
Okay.
And which is the idea
that's
that
really cool.
I think that every genre has something good to offer. The reason it is a style or genre or idiom or however you want to refer to it is because one or a few people did something worthwhile with it, and then other people copied them, and then probably some company was like, we need to market this, so sign more people who sound like this, etc. And then it gets oversaturated and goes out of style, etc.
That's why I want to invent brown metal with you.
Brown metal?
Yeah, it's where we play, all of our strings are tuned to B, and we're going to play brown burst finished Ibanez's. And then we're going to be called Porcelain Throne.
And we use an octave drop on everything?
Yeah, but we want to kind of make the breakdowns, or even if it's like a genty breakdown, go... You know how like the gent is known for like a lot of bends as well, single note bends? We're going to comprise it mainly of that. So we'll be called Porcelain Throne.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's another project. Brown metal. So no bad genres, and because I realized that even if I don't care for a genre, there's something. Well, partially, in some level, I got into some of the genres that I didn't like at all for years. Like for a long time, I didn't listen to any hip hop or rap, and I didn't care for it. And I mean, partially when it was getting popular, I was getting into even whiter music. I was getting into even whiter music that was not popular at the time.
Yeah.
And but I at some point I did get into some, and now I like it, and I can differentiate the stuff I like from what I don't like, and there's reasons for it. And so what I realized is, right, there's something useful or interesting or good in any style of music, but there's also a bunch of crap, and there's always a bunch of crap. And this is the other thing where, like, again, the fallacies of the sort of prog community is there's a sort of inherent belief that we have the best music, and while I still on some level, in some way, maybe believe that, it's still at a certain point in time, because it fell off because of the belief that, like, our music is so good, we don't need anything extra to add to it.
Yeah.
And yet the reason that prog exists in the first place is because people added things to rock music from outside of rock music.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of prog to me in the beginning was combining genres anyway.
Yeah.
And it meant that I could write rock or metal, but if I wanted to throw in some weird non-rock, non-metal thing, I could, because it's okay in prog. And so that was what really was important, and yet people just they just got really hung up on the time signatures and stuff, and that's a big part of it too. But it became such a part of it that it just became like, oh, as long as you play in like 7/8 once in a while, and you make sure to have long instrumental sections that bore a lot of people, you're prog, and some of us will eat that shit up.
Yeah,
is the thing. So I got out of that, and I was like, it really hurt the whole genre, because it really stagnated and stopped progressing, and then it just kind of became.
It kind of is the idea that more is better,
right? And so then it kind of became this idea
or that there's a prerequisite,
right? And so then we got the idea that there's prog, and then there's progressive, and so progressive really should be a thing that exists in any kind of music, right?
Yeah, the idea.
Yeah, and so okay, so let me back up.
We have point one.
We have point one, which is
there are no bad genres, only bad musicians.
and directly related to that, music is music.
Right.
Right. All music can kind of be evaluated on certain musical criteria because it's music. So if we take a step further, we want to get more specific, right? So you can kind of evaluate this, and this is kind of where you go like, oh yeah, well, this is okay. So you got general kind of musical assessment. Then you have within the thing about styles of music and genres is that even if we want to say like they don't really matter, or it's not entirely necessary, it's a thing we have anyway, and it affects the way that music works because it affects how people think about music. And so a lot of people tend to sort of, they find their genre or style and they stick with it, and then they kind of like just get real comfortable and don't push the boundaries at all.
Right.
But within that, but what happens is certain styles of music then have different specific criteria for what they consider internally to be good, right?
Okay.
So there's certain like power metal has become a very distinct style of metal that you actually used to be a more confusing term, because there used to be a broader selection of things that were considered power metal,
right? And
it kind of the cheesy European, often very major happy sounding stuff is what kind of won out for that label.
Yeah.
So,
but now that as we've discussed and looked over in previous podcasts, the cheese can hit
right.
It can hit like on a ridiculous level.
Right.
So much cheese.
So when you're listening to power metal, so this is a good example of like
specific criteria.
Right. So within power metal, like Dragonforce, Dragonforce.
Wow, cheese to the max.
But they're a great example of how to assess things based on overall versus within its style. Dragonforce
tried to like popularize like
Dragonforce
power metal.
took two elements of power metal
Yeah.
and made them extreme. One was the speed, because there was also a period of time where a certain type of power metal was called speed metal
Yeah.
because it was very fast. So they took that and they cranked it up. Unfortunately, it's an illusion, because functionally within the music, the speed becomes irrelevant at a certain point, and you can tell because like when I saw them this year.
Dragonforce?
Yes.
You saw Dragonforce?
Yes, I saw them, which is great because it basically.
Did you go far beyond the sun?
I went far beyond thinking they're mediocre to realizing how less good they are than I thought already,
man.
even. But which is a whole other interesting ties into some other opinion and people disagreeing with, or people love Dragonforce and don't want to hear that other people don't.
I mean, whatever. They're great
So
musicians.
the other
but-
thing, well, there's but again, there's two things they did. They did the speed thing, and they also took the cheesy melody thing, right?
Yeah.
They did. In fact, they did a good job with that. Early on, I've become more opposed to Dragonforce as time has gone on. But early on, it was like that "Through the Fire and the Flame" song. I was like, "It's a really catchy song. It's an okay melody. It's power metal. It's sing-songy and very major and tonal and all that. But that's what power metal wants. And so I'm not at all surprised. They've been very successful,
Right.
Because they gave part of that audience exactly what they wanted. In the process, they took out a whole bunch of things that I want. But that's fine. I don't need to listen to Dragonforce.
It's a choice.
So there's that, and then another similar criteria on that level is you've got music in general, which goes back to like the basic elements of music: rhythm, melody, harmony, timbre, structure, so on. I don't have them off the top of my head memorized, and there are different schools of thought as to what the sort of most basic elements are.
Yeah.
But if you have any sort of musical education, one of the first things you realize is there are these certain basic elements of music, and so those are very important when you're evaluating stuff. So there's music is music. Then you got different styles, and within those styles, and this is especially important also for like, rap, for example, is one I think about this a lot, because rap has become very much stuck in the basic criteria of what makes rap popular, and it's part of why there hasn't been, although there's a new trend now in this sort of like, I guess it's kind of like neo soul, where there's a lot more, they're putting more musical elements back into hip hop by actually using more musicians and
Right.
stuff like that, and trying to break out of the sort of entirely loop.
They should all just hire Linkin
Babes.
Park as a session band.
So my point being, actually rap might not be the best idea because I need to like work out my terms for their criteria,
Which
but
would go down another road.
right. But power metal's a good one because again, it's you need melodic, catchy choruses, and you need at least some point to play
A giant solo.
fairly fast, and at some point you need some whittly solo, and and there's usually at least certain kind of guitars and stuff like that. So there's certain criteria, and those things may make for Dragonforce is another good example, right? So Herman Lee is a popular shreddy guitar player. I'm not going to go into the specifics of what I feel about him and his guitar playing right now, but the point is that's a big part of it, right? You need a guy for guitar players to like jerk off to, right? You need a guy for them to be like, oh, that solo, he just played so long. Oh yeah, it's so great. I got to go learn that solo right now.
Yeah.
And within the context of power metal, you want that. It's good. But within the context of music as a whole, it's not inherently great to have a guy who plays a lot of fast guitar solos, right?
No.
It's a thing. So it's a different criteria within the genre than within music as a whole.
Right.
And so that's another thing where like when you talk to people who are really into like metal or really into rap, and you talk to them from the general perspective of some, that's why you get arguments where people are like, Dragonforce is great. I'm like, Dragonforce is not great. You're like, Dragonforce is a great band. Like I guess they're like a good power metal band, because within the context of power metal, they're doing what power metal wants to do. But then you hear the actual songs and you're just like, well, for somebody who doesn't listen to metal, would have a very different reaction to this.
Glory Hammer.
Well, and Glory Hammer. Okay, so Glory Hammer is the best example of our next point.
God.
The next point, which is that, in my mind, this is again kind of like I'm trying to get more specific and narrower focus. This is where chronology is a factor, which is that time is important, and this factors into originality.
Yeah,
which
I
is
was definitely going to make a point about that.
Right. So art is like a key part of human expression, and it always grows and evolves with us, like our languages do, like our society does. And so it's very hard to document, because the real connections in music happen inside individual people's brains.
Yeah.
And then they synthesize different things they've heard into something sort of new,
right? And
then that gets absorbed by somebody else and goes into something. So it's really you can't say like it's part of why some of the arguments people get into get really dumb about like trying to prove like Eddie Van Halen didn't invent tapping. It's like, no, but then they'll be like, it was actually this Italian guy, and there's this video on YouTube, and it's like, maybe, but maybe he didn't invent it either. There was probably at least one or two other dudes at the same time doing the same thing.
Right. 7-strings were made popular by cont. No, didn't Russian 7-string acoustic guitars exist?
Well, right.
Like
7-strings existed in like jazz.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
And it was guys like Steve Vai.
Right.
Steve Vai is the first one who was like, I need a metal electric 7-string. And we talked about this on the Too Many Strings episode, by the way, because Rich had more specific info for this than I did. Yeah, so I guess he wanted a high string, but it wasn't, it kept breaking, and so they put the low string on, and he was like,
what was the high string then? Did they just go up in another perfect
a high
fourth?
A?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it didn't. It's not. It. You have to use like an 8, and it's. I mean, some people have actually done that still. Like they either.
Switch out
with
the
a
nut
7
on the 7 string,
or with like an 8 string, they'll do the low 7th, and then they'll do a higher string too.
Yeah.
But I can get into a lot of reasons I don't think it's that useful or practical or whatever. But
I mean, it's. I should think it's obvious.
Yeah, but at any rate, why were we talking about? It's somehow related to how things come about, and it's not always just one guy, and people get too hung up on like, it was this guy, he did it, man.
People did that with the power chords. Like Pete Townsend was the one to make the popularizer.
Yeah, it's like
no,
it's like really like anyway. So okay, so we've got chronology is important. So that means, right, if you're doing something, so like say you write pop music is the simplest example of this, because everyone's like, there's this idea that's been around since I was a kid. It's really, people think it's harder to write, long music or whatever, but it's actually really tricky to write just a great 3-minute pop song. And I kind of agreed with that when I was a child in the 80s, but it's 2015, and since the dominant form of music has been the 3-minute pop song for like 40 years, or more, way more than that, actually. I'm just thinking my own personal life has been at least like 30 years of like, that's what's on the radio, and and everyone just kind of accepting that that's what acceptable like commercial music is like. And again, it's hard to maintain objectivity since I've been writing songs since I got a guitar,
right?
But I'm kind of like, what's harder is not doing that, is like, a lot of things a lot of longer music is harder to write,
Yeah.
especially if you want it to still be engaging and entertaining and keep your attention. So like, but on top of that, it's also, again, it's a thing that's been around so long that it's like, for a while there, maybe even in the 80s and 90s, when the like sound, I feel like we haven't really discovered any major new timbres lately. Like there's some new advancements based on digital things allowing new combinations and new manipulations of sound.
Right.
But most of it is still manipulating sounds that have been around since analog synths first came around, right? So without a completely new sound, which is another is part of the issue with pop music and with sort of rock music in general, which is that this is kind of a separate but related idea, which is that I feel like rock music and sort of mainstream Western popular music, which essentially started with rock, right?
Yeah,
rock and roll was like
pop.
It became pop because it stopped rocking, and but that style of music, it's sort of a hybrid. It's not so much a pure music style as it is a hybrid of music and kind of poetry, because there's a huge, or at least there used to be, huge emphasis on lyrics and sort of the like with between folk rock and classic rock, there was always a big emphasis on lyrics and what it was saying. And the best example, and the reason I say this specifically is a sort of this makes it a slightly different artistic medium, because those things need to be considered kind of both separately as well as together. The best example is Bob Dylan, which is Bob Dylan is a great lyricist, and he's considered basically one of the great like poets of our time. But if you took that away, his music probably wouldn't have been popular at all, because
I'm still wondering what the hell that kind of is with the Rolling Stones, you know?
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones were just somehow, I don't know, maybe it was the lower register of Mick Jagger that kind of appealed.
Well, the interesting thing with the Stones,
I'm not sure.
I think for their time,
Like something that pisses me off about Keith Richards and his appeal, that everyone constantly says this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've said this before in a podcast, but I'd say it so frequently. I'm not, and again, you know, some people might be like, oh, well, as opposed to, I'm not comparing him to fucking John Petrucci or anyone.
Yeah.
Keith Richards is a good guitar player who makes good sounding guitar music. However, people are like, oh my god, he's an innovator, he only plays with 5 strings, and even he describes it. I love open G as a tuning, okay? Most of his like 25 whatever tellies that you will see are 5 strings, you know?
Yeah.
And it's because he doesn't know how to use theoretically the 5th below the root, because it's an inversion. So to have like a second inverted tuning on an open tuning guitar is like, it's too much for him to handle. He doesn't know how to mute it. I don't really like it like that, so take off the low string, because realistically what I tell to most people who don't understand guitars, you don't really need it.
Yeah.
So you got some poor douchebag who's starting guitar going, well, I don't really need the low string, or I'm going to tune it in open G. And that's a load of nonsense. For example, some modern guitarists who use open G tuning, for example, Jesse Hughes from the Eagles of Death Metal, right? He takes the lowest string, puts a thinner gauge on it, and then doubles up the Gs, as opposed to having the 5th.
Yeah.
Whenever you see him play, and of course he has to get the lower gauge, because I've done it with an E before as a laugh years ago. Did not work out well. But it gives a really awesome sound to it, because especially if the string that is put on with the same gauge as in standard A, like goes out of tune, you get this chorusy effect. So rather than having something that is out of tune, it's like, wow, it's a distinct sound. And it's awesome. I just can't stand the fact that Keith Richards gets like viewed as an guitar icon because of the 5 string fact, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, no, he just did something lazy because he couldn't be arsed.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that too. And that's a whole other topic, as far as like, which is similar to what we were talking about before with like the Beatles and stuff, where there's a certain classic rock, like, it's more of like this, like it's like a hero worship, like legend status thing where
That's what I never liked about the Beatles.
yeah,
Personally,
right,
because I
right.
lived there,
You're
and
right.
I was just
you couldn't criticize them because that's how big they are.
Yeah, PC,
and it's
man.
like, yeah, but not everything they did was great. And
No.
and like actually that Christmas song you mentioned is
That's Paul
one of my
McCartney's strictly.
right, because I like to rip on Paul McCartney because I mean, people like, that used to be a big thing too, is John versus Paul, whatever, and like who gives a shit.
Who
But
cares?
I mean, I slightly prefer John purely because of songs he wrote,
Right.
his singing, and that Paul McCartney did more stuff that I thought that I heard him, especially, but mostly after the Beatles, where
Paul
I was just
McCartney
like,
stuff was more poppy.
right, it was poppy
Yeah.
and way more like major and more that
Right.
that Christmas song, simply having a wonderful Christmas time. And I'm like,
that your impression of Paul?
go fuck yourself, Paul. Yeah, exactly. Paul, why don't you go fuck yourself? Oh, no, that's from Dewey Cox is what I'm doing. I just subconsciously.
I'm really, really good at doing
Do you-
Liverpudlians accents.
do you,
'cause I lived there.
Well, I could do like real Liverpool, but I was doing my impression
Of an American.
of Paul Rudd from
Yeah.
Walk Hard,
Right.
doing because none of the Beatles impressions in that scene are particularly good,
Yeah.
but they're funny because of how sort of like they're bad impressions of other people doing impressions of the Beatles, basically.
Right.
So
no,
it's like
that's like my
yeah.
favorite impression of Sean Connery is Americans doing Sean Connery. Like I'm Scottish, I could do Sean Connery, but I prefer the yes, that's absolutely fascinating.
yeah, right.
Yes, your mother Trebek. It's just so much more funny
Right.
with that.
Than doing
I'm not
like an
gonna do
accurate.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't want to do a Sean
Right,
Connery.
and like so like that scene, one of my favorite lines though, which also sums up the sort of John Paul thing perfectly, is where he's like, Jack Black is Paul, and he's like, oh, which also again is my problem with Paul. He's such a like, like he's always so upbeat and cheery, and then like John was supposed to be kind of more dark and brooding, and he was like, oh, John, I don't know why you have to be so dark and brooding. He's like, I don't know, why'd you have to be such a cunt? And that's my favorite.
Oh.
Yeah. And then Ringo's like, I wrote a song about an octopus's garden. Oh, it's very
and then
nice.
George is going, why do I have to be Ringo's keeper while you two
Yeah,
juke
yeah.
it out and
It's like,
circle
that's
jerk?
very nice. We'll put it on the fridge.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
So going back to like the four criteria, right?
Okay.
I mean, like,
So wait, okay, so
you
we're
got the
talking
first
about
2 or 3.
all right. So we're talking about like you go from like general music assessment, which is rhythm, melody, harmony, timbre, the
Right.
basic elements of music that apply to any music.
And then you said chronological.
Then you go like I would say. Well, these are kind of parallel, but there's chronology, which is right. Is it doing anything that hasn't been done before, or hasn't been done a lot? It doesn't have to be like you don't have to reinvent the wheel,
Yeah.
but
it doesn't make you a good musician or the music good if you're doing something that hasn't been done
right.
before.
Just because it hasn't been done,
right.
there might be a reason that it
Right.
hasn't been done.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And so it's good to take risks and try to
Like the kazoo.
push things. But it's also, and I also understand it's getting more difficult
Right.
for people to kind of figure out what hasn't been done, and which I think also the biggest mistake people make with that is that they kind of assume like it's been done. They're like, oh, I guess it's all, but I don't have any ideas. I can't think of anything new, so I guess it's impossible to come up with any new ideas. And I'm
Right.
like, then why do I have ideas, asshole? Like I have ideas, and I'm pretty sure they haven't been done, or at least haven't. The things in my head haven't been made, and therefore I feel they're worth making, and therefore I assume someone else on this planet has some ideas.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, yeah, well then you shouldn't write music. If you feel like there are no new ideas and there's no new original music, then you shouldn't write music.
I think that when you were talking about chronology before, there was something that I was thinking about. It's like, I wasn't really aware of what you were going to say. A band, for example, that is out of its time, not necessarily ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
Because people use that phrase like a lot.
Yeah.
And it, thankfully it's used sparingly. Wolf Mother. Wolf Mother were a band that, are quite popular. And I think that their juice that they were running on, because the only original member of the band is the lead singer now. And I know that he did most of the writing, but I'm hoping it wasn't some douchebaggery, where he ended up being a wank, and then people in the band were like, well, I'm out, or they got fired. But I remember listening to them and going, God, this band's right out of the 60s. They sound like a rock version of Sabbath that wasn't as like brooding. Like, they have kind of like mystical, like it's like a spaceship out of the 60s into the future that is now, and they're here. They just, I'm like, I wonder if they would have been more successful, then than now. I mean, they are. I mean, I don't think they're as successful as they were when they first came out.
Yeah.
Because, like, Woman, you are. That was immediately put on Guitar Hero 2, and, blah, 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 blah. And Joker and the Thief, has been used in that. Hangover, Jackass, like, people love Wolf Mother, that kind of thing. They are a great band. I love them still. I haven't listened to them in a while. But then there's, like, another band that we were talking about before when we were mentioning Gent. Sixth.
Yeah.
SIKTH. They're a UK band. And they were out, their first album was out in 2003. And I remember listening to their sound and going, this is something that hasn't been done before. And I, like there was that chunkiness to it.
Yeah. And
I was intrigued by it. I remember listening to it probably, I was in the States, so it would have had to have been, maybe 2006. So they're 2006, 2007. Their second album came out. And I was just like, this hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
But they broke up, and I don't know through what it was, but I know they weren't as popular. It's difficult in Britain. Most bands that are in Britain have to make it big out in America.
Yeah.
And then a lot of bands in America that don't make it out over here do well in Britain.
Yeah.
Like Kings of Leon and The Killers were huge in their debut stuff.
Yeah.
But now I've just noticed that they've come out with a new 2015 album, which I'll have to check out.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned them too, because I've been meaning to listen to them for exactly that reason, that multiple people have said the same thing, which is that they're technically not Gent, but that's just because they've been around since before Gent. So they're like proto-Gent. They're one of the bands, in addition to Meshuggah, that influenced Gent. And as such, they are also better than a lot of new Gent because they're not just copying a bunch of other Gent. Yeah, they're not like fifth generation Gent. That's the other thing. I think that what happens now too is because of how quickly things move with the internet and communication, we very quickly cycle from cool new sound to like fifth generation rehash, like just copied crap. You know what I mean? And it happens much faster.
It just depends, I guess, who listens to it.
Well, yeah. What I'm saying is, like, you can much more quickly go from like a few years ago, Gent, I knew like Periphery, and I think I had heard of Tesseract, but I hadn't actually heard them yet.
Yeah, I've started getting into them recently.
The first time I saw Periphery, it was actually, I think it was about like 5 years ago, and I think it was right before, I remember because I went with Rich, because Rich was like, yo, are you going to the show? And I hadn't been going to shows at all.
Right.
And I was just like, okay.
See what Gent did for you, man?
It was Periphery. It was also like the best Gent show lineup I've seen since, still.
Right.
It was Periphery, Tesseract, The Contortionist, Textures, who... I heard good things about Textures, but I wasn't as crazy about what they did live. But The Contortionist was actually really good, and then I think Tesseract was all right. But they might have like they were on the current vocalist before he left the first time. But whatever, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty good show, and it was the first time I'd seen Periphery, and it was one of the better shows with them. And although maybe just because they were mostly playing the first album.
Yeah.
But
again, I mean, there's plenty of YouTube stuff that focuses mainly around their earlier stuff, you know?
Yeah.
You put in Periphery, you get a lot of, like advertisements for their first album.
Yeah.
And it's also a very particular type of thing that you would have to evaluate, where a lot of these bands kind of are based around like one person's idea first, where they are composing it as an instrumentalist. It's funny you have to call it instrumentalist because you mean without vocals, and yet voice is considered an instrument. You know? It's like, and a lot of people will take to gent music because of that. And it's funny because gent itself, other than the gent like sound, is based on like single note music around it, like lower bassy grooves that use single notes. I mean, for example, I hear a lot of bands that were, I guess you could call them proto-gent again, that were doing compositions within the song that didn't focus around it, where they were doing the single note stuff that sounded, quote unquote, genty. Yeah.
Well, see, this is another great example of what we were talking about, where gent has very specific criteria for what gent kids want to hear. And it doesn't mean that they're
so douchey.
Well, and some of the best bands are the ones who actually get outside of that.
Yeah.
And
Animals as leaders.
Yeah. And actually, like Tesseract did some cool stuff where they really kind of got. There's this band
I can't wait to like bite more into Tesseract, because when I first heard them again, it was like Periphery. I heard too much of the which I love.
Their new one. Well, here's what happened too. The singer, who I think is back with them now, left. The guy they replaced him with couldn't do anything harsh or aggressive of any kind. All he could do was very light, high stuff.
That's probably what I listened to.
Yeah, and that entire album, there's one song with a decent melody line on it, and the entire rest of the album is just and he sings so light and airy.
Yeah, that's what I heard
that
initially
it became
with Tesseract.
like that entire album, the vocals are like another instrument, and they're not the lead.
You think that's just like one of those albums where they just never ever cover any of the music for it live at shows because they know?
No, it was a very popular album. I'm the only one who thinks this, apparently. But, well, other than all the people who don't listen to Gent.
Well, it's not like, we're saying, or, well, particularly me, I don't know about you, that I think that Alpha and Omega of Periphery is bad, by any means. I'm going to have to like.
Well, here's the thing. This is relevant, because the reason I don't like it is I'm evaluating it as music, and for me, that means at some point there should be discernible melody lines. And that's my problem, is there aren't. The vocals are an ambient instrument.
I thought that the first album had plenty of great melody
lines.
No.
I'm talking about this one Tesseract album.
Oh, the Tesseract album. Oh, okay.
Altered States. It's super. It's actually, it's not bad, and one song is really, really good. It's just that the entire album has no vocal melodies of any note.
Right.
And they're not coherent. They're just... Because, again, the problem in Gent is that nobody can figure out how to sing on it.
Yeah, it was Altered State.
Yeah. And there was one song that's really, really cool, but Nocturne is one I really like. And it has, like, the best melody on the album. But the entire rest of the album, there's, like, not even close, like, melodies. But within the context of Gent... It still has genty bits, and it has proggy bits, and so it was like...
But this is the album that has the floaty voice on it? Dude.
And so this was like a bunch of people... I forget if it came out in 2014 or whatever year, but whatever year it came out...
2013.
13, okay. Well, a bunch of people were like, best prog album of the year, and I was like, well, I'm trying to think... Oh, yeah, Leprous Coal came out that year, so that's why they're absolutely wrong, because that's a much better album.
Who's that?
But Leprous, they're this Norwegian... like kind of genuinely progressive, although their new album is not as good. But the last one they did, Coal, is really, really, really good.
Right.
It's an album I will recommend to anybody. Right. So that was kind of my, my genre criteria thing fits very well with that Tesseract album, which is that in certain ways, within, Gent, there's some very cool stuff in there. There's some cool melody stuff. There are genty parts, which is one of the problems I have with Gent, is that it always have to have the genty part. Is that in a grand scheme of things, that's a really kind of
sounds like a physical attribute.
It's a limiting thing, right? Is you're like you're saying that like they needed the heavy song on that Animals as Leaders album.
Yeah.
But I mean,
but there was plenty of heavy in there without it.
Well, right.
Not that I'm saying Tooth and Claw
no,
was
but
bad.
The point
I
is,
loved it.
The point is they've gone beyond it, right?
Right.
If they've gone beyond Gent, right? They're not really a gent band, but if they were trying to be a gent band, they would probably be a less interesting band to a lot of people, because they would just be constantly trying to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you always want like some variation, and because there aren't as many gent bands that are as popular that you
Yeah.
will find easily and listen to online that are, so you want them to vary. Like, I like the fact that Animals as Leaders is different from Periphery.
Exactly.
And I like the Periphery is different from Animals as
Right.
Leaders. And the
And
other
it
thing
makes-
is that,
it makes them better music.
this music in general, we're talking about people are afraid to kind of acknowledge it. I think that it takes you longer nowadays with this music because it is complicated.
Mm.
It's, there's a lot more in it to really listen to a whole album,
Yeah.
because we're talking about how it differentiates from pop music. Something like Icarus Lives, which is, as you said, you think it's their best song, and I totally agree with you. It's like one of the most simple ones that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that oxymoron of like,
Well, but part of why I think it despite its simplicity, that's why I think they nailed it, because
the groove. They wanted to originally call it Groove City. Apparently.
Yeah.
They fuck around with their names. Apparently, all of their albums are like dick jokes or something like that.
Well, for one, I think that within Gent, there's, again, this is one of my problems with Gent, is that I evaluate it in a general musical context, which means that it's heavily rhythm based, but so is like, are the rhythms good? And
right.
And what that comes down to is that song is great because the groovy riff actually grooves.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people write Gent grooves and it's not really a groove. It's only a groove because it sounds like, you know what I mean? Like it isn't a functional, like it doesn't work as a functional piece of music. It's just like you put a bunch of random because, and it happened in prog metal and it's happened in Gent, is that you've got guys who kind of like get it and they have ideas within that context. Like the dude in Meshuggah, people are always surprised when they hear that he doesn't like sit down and write out a grid and like write out the times. He comes up with the riffs and then they work out the rhythms of it and shit. So he comes up with odd off-time riffs that will fit in a polymetric context.
Yeah.
But he does it naturally, and that's why they're good. That's why they're better at it than all the other Gent bands, because when they write those riffs, it still has the necessary complexity.
Yeah.
But they don't come up with them in an overly intellectualized way. So there's still that sort of raw.
I feel like raw as in like machinized, like it's not something that's synthetic.
Yeah, it's very primal. They have very primal rhythms. Yeah.
I think that to close, I have some really dumb points that are awesome.
Go for it.
Give people things to do.
Yeah.
I was scrolling down in Periphery in Spotify, and then it says appears on, like, obviously songs can appear in certain albums and mixes. Apparently Periphery appears on two things: 2014's Florence and the Sphinx Sumerian Ceremonials. It also appears on 2012's Russian songs Women's Names. I'm sure there's a Periphery song that is like a woman's name, but it's just like the albums look really fucked up.
Yeah.
It made me think of the thing I was talking to you about, I don't know if it was yesterday, where I think it was yesterday, I was talking to someone about this thing that's trending on Facebook where you go into the search and you put friends who like Donald Trump. And then I was like, oh yeah, and then music, because they were like, yeah, look, this person that we know likes Nickelback, and I was like, no, that's not possible. I think that's a good thing to do, like if you're bored, is to go on Facebook. I want to do this now, like think of the most like ridiculous bands, like friends who like Limp Bizkit, friends who like, I don't know, someone.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do that.
Yeah. So I was going to say that that Adele song is a good example of this. So if we look at that Adele song, first of all, the style of music it is kind of like this retro. I'm trying to think of the way to put it. It's sort of like retro soul, I guess. It's kind of like,
you think?
Well, like what would you describe Adele as?
Well, I mean, if I just take the chorus, because I mean, if you think about pop, Dave Grohl put it in a funny way. It's a great video he does with Kyle Gass, who's interviewing him right before a festival, Anyway, if you hear "Hello from the other side" and it's like heavily reverb saturated, I'd say it's a modern. It's modern pop,
Right.
hipster,
Well,
like.
I'm saying like look at her whole style though.
Oh,
look at her.
okay, yeah, very soul oriented.
Right.
I mean, it's the style of her voice.
Right. It's her voice, but it also
Post op and pre op.
also
Why is that funny?
also I'm pretty sure
Buckle up, buckaroos. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure she has a songwriting partner, so it's like the same guy writing them. So there's some consistency, which is good. But
that's true.
right. So it's okay. So here's how I look at it. It's a retro style, right? So there's one thing we have to consider right off the bat is that it is a style of music that is new, but
Chronologically done before.
only so much in that it is an old style that is being brought back.
Right.
I mean, it kind of ties into it's a bigger trend than just Adele. Obviously, it's Sam Smith kind of fits into the same thing. It's even though it's modern and it's pop, it's intentionally.
Is he not popular anymore?
Who?
Sam Smith.
No, he's still popular.
When can that be done?
Well, he's in between albums, so you're not going to hear as much about him right now. But hopefully, yeah. If you put
which one is Sam Smith? The one that did.
He's like the male Adele. That's what his style is.
He's the English fella that did the Tom Petty copy, right?
Which Tom Petty? Huh?
Or is he the one? Yeah, no. Sam Smith is the.
Oh yeah, he got sued because the song.
Okay.
Well, also,
I'm
I want to
glad
say
I've forgotten what the song is and I can't hear it in
also
my head. We should just skip ahead. Before
also, I want to be
remember
clear that his songs aren't as good as Adele's. And
Nowhere
there's
near.
Let's come back and do a little compare and contrast on that in a minute. But but their style, it's clearly the same style they're going for. They're trying to make him a male Adele. Only they don't have whoever her songwriter is to write songs that are genuine and meaningful to her or whatever. And so it's just random fucking cheesy like soul. But it's the same thing, which is that it's intentionally organic. It's real instruments. It's like piano and strings and a very kind of classic old, almost non-modern sound, although it is very modern production. And I just heard something like I was like, "What?" Oh, yeah. Well, too fucking bad. I'll edit
This is Oliver, my cat.
Yeah,
he wants out the bedroom because he hears his mama. He's like, I hear the woman that feeds me. It sounds like a drowning cat. We should do a drowning pool parody and have him do voiceover for it.
Drowning cat?
Yeah, he sounds like this. That's really what he sounds like when you take the headphones off.
So, anyway, but I do think. Oh, I heard it.
Maybe leave it in. We'll get him to do an interview. Oliver.
Starting to get antsy.
Yeah, he wants out now. He's like, he's upset.
Should I open the door for him? You want me to let him out?
Let's just keep having it in the background.
That's fine.
Well, also,
that's fine. Yeah. No, we got to wrap up soon. I know. But there's gonna be some edits. Don't worry. Hey, if we make 2 episodes out of it, even better.
Yeah, right. Part 1, part 2.
So, it's still technically like an old style that brought back that some people makes it, because I saw somebody arguing about it the other day, and literally this was confirmed my suspicion, which is that people see it as more genuine because it's not all auto-tuned and processed, and it is this sort of more, quote-unquote classic kind of style of music. Now, if you take a step past that, I think she's a good singer. I think they're pretty well-written songs. But it does lose something on this sort of chronology and originality standpoint. And on top of that...
Well, is that going to get, like, bad marks because of that? You know what I mean? Like, in a critiquing stance?
Well, I would... See, to me, it would... Again, this is where I would say you have to separate the contexts. If you take it out of context of everything, it's all right. It's pretty good. they're well written songs. They seem to, because of the way that it's written with her and this dude, it comes it's freaking out. Because of that, I think they're more genuine songs, right? They obviously come off as genuine because that's the other reason everybody likes it. It's sort of like and the lyrics are all right. They're pretty decent.
But
sorry, this is making it harder for me to come to a point and focus and wrap it up.
well, it's just, we're just trying to get footage here of Oliver participating in the podcast, doing his new. He's practicing for his new band, Drowning Cat.
Wow.
I gotta get him at some point.
Now it just looks like he's sulking and he's mad.
I know, right?
He keeps looking at us like, "Are you not gonna let me the fuck out?"
Like
Are
how
you
much longer do I
fucking
have
kidding
to
me?
like deal with this shit?
Yeah. So that's the thing with the Adele thing. So like I'm my personal assessment is like when she first when she had a bunch of big hits with like Rolling in the Deep and all that, I was pretty positive on it because again it didn't do a bunch of things that bugged me about modern pop music, right? It wasn't overprocessed. It's not, I'm sure it's still compressed, but it at least has the illusion of dynamics because there's just less things. The verses are always, stripped down like piano stuff. So she's a good singer. They're well-written songs. But then you also have to factor in, it's not quite as original as everyone kind of wants to think it is. Doesn't necessarily make it bad, right? But it makes it in some way less good. You know what I mean? Like, so to me, it's like you can have competent music without it being super original, and there's still value to it, right?
Yeah.
And again, because not everything can be completely original, but to me, there's still a separate category where it's like, does this have something like actually like fairly unique and original in it?
Right.
But that being said, Adele's kind of doing the best version of her style thing right now.
Yeah.
And most of the other attempts at the same kind of thing, I like far less.
Sam Smith.
Right. Now, I like Sam Smith as a singer. I think his voice is all right. I don't think the songs are very good.
It just bugs me because he copied Tom Petty and his English.
Oh yeah. Well, but again,
it's
who,
like
who
James
copied Tom
Corden.
Petty? The shitty songwriter who wrote that song for him. Like that. It's.
He wrote that.
He didn't write shit.
Tom Petty?
No, I mean Sam Smith.
Oh, right. No,
I'm just
talking
saying
about Tom
they
Petty.
gave him Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Well, but it also
He was
was.
getting awards for everything.
But the
as well.
entire album is 3 or 4 chord boring ass songs. So of course one of them sounds like Tom Petty. That's what I'm saying. It's almost like it was.
No,
I'm sure it wasn't even intentional.
It's the melody line of.
That's kind of like I Won't Back Down.
Yeah.
But it's, again, so what? Like how many? I'm sure there's lots of songs you can find that sound like
but
a Tom
that one
Petty song.
very distinctly.
Right,
like,
but the whole point is the entire album is it's all half-ass. The songs are all half-ass
yeah.
mediocre
But
songs.
then they're accessible to a lot more people.
Right, but so is Adele, and those aren't as half-assed and ripped off.
And I'm
is my point.
glad.
I'm saying she is a better songwriter.
Yeah.
Sam just has whoever the label fucking wrangled for that thing. That's what it is. It's a pop thing, right? So my thing is, I like him as a singer. I think he has a good voice, and he uses a kind of head voice that I don't hear a lot. He's able to do at least at times. I already see cases live where I think he's going to run into the wall because Adele did the same thing. She's a great singer, but she's a natural singer, right? She's not like a super intensely trained singer, and so she had issues as soon as she went on the road and had to sing every night.
Yeah.
Now I don't know where she is with that now, but and I think Sam Smith's gonna have the same problem with that. But I like that he has this. It's a thing that was really big in metal for a while. Like the dude we were listening to Ghost Ship Octavius. That's the kind of metal singing that uses that kind of head voice a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so pissed.
We're really appreciating my cat get mad right now. There's a reason the band is named after you, Oliver. Oh, he's even like
now he thinks he thinks you're like fronting.
Yeah,
he
like
thinks you're trying to start something with him now.
No, he's coming up to me. He's like, "Do you not?" He's looking at me. He's like, "Do you not understand?"
I think he has a vague inkling that you are mocking him. He's kind of like, "You're fucking with me, aren't you? You son of a bitch! No, you're gonna let me out. Is what you're gonna do. I'm gonna fuck you." See, look now he wants to. He wants to fight.
No. This cat doesn't fight. He just gets even.
Oh, okay.
it's
then he wants. Then he is plotting his
revenge.
Right. So anyway, let's wrap it up. Am I making sense? Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, totally.
I think I'm trying to think if I missed any major. The point is that you can contextualize things. Oh, and I was going to say that the new Adele song, similarly, I place it within the context of her previous stuff, which is that. While it's a decent song, but you can take it a step further in that it is exactly the same style as her previous 2 albums.
Right. Yeah. No, and I mean that really depends whether that you're a person who will be like, oh yeah, I enjoy the predictability and the consistency.
Well, right. That's another thing. Is that, but that's another thing with any artist is you also have to factor in like, right? Have they developed since their previous thing, or are you just happy with them putting out the same thing forever? Because some people are happy with that, but I will still evaluate that differently. I will say, like Dream Theater, right? The last few Dream Theater albums, if you've never heard Dream Theater,
right?
Like I'm not surprised that like younger Dream Theater fans like the newer albums. That's what they're exposed to.
Yeah.
But if you got into Dream Theater in the '90s, then the newest albums are basically them. They have mostly been them kind of nailing their same classic sound and just kind of doing more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine for some people, but then I'm like, but I've heard this. Like it's really, I'm not hearing anything new.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, why not just listen to their old albums?
Right.
And
enjoy.
Yeah. And so, and which I felt were original at the time, you know? So.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that bands that have been around for, talking about chronology again, bands that have been around for like a good amount of time, like Dream Theater, will allow their outside influences to really let in, or as they get better, they'll also allow themselves to let themselves go. And
here's a weird thing that happened with Dream Theater for a few years. For a few years, their albums became heavily influenced by outside influences because I think they had. Well, okay, so this is another thing that happens in general. Which is it's why this kind of evaluation, some people just don't like it, right? Some people are just like, well, so what if that band wants to like AC/DC is a good example. Like, oh, all their albums sound the same. It's like, well,
that's something I was listening to today. I mean, they actually, Angus and Malcolm sat down one time and were like, we gotta write something different, and then they tried it, and clearly those are the albums we were talking about in the middle. Still widely loved by so many people, but then eventually they realized we just got to write what we want.
Right, but then they did manage to add a little bit extra dimension to it in the '90s with like some of the stuff, or not the '90s. The '80s and '90s. Some of the like Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
Or even Back in Black, like Hell's Bells, they had some certain elements of production and stuff.
Yeah, that they don't usually do.
Yeah, that gave it a little more depth. And so... Just let him out because it's making it harder to wrap up. I'm trying to wrap up on like a solid point and not just, okay, I guess let's stop now. So the point is like, right, so if you're really into AC/DC... you can hear the differences between their albums,
definitely.
Right? Like they're not literally the same song, but occasionally they're functionally close to the same song.
Yeah.
So, there's different degrees, right? You can scale it any way you want to look at it. But it's good to do that, I think. I think it's good to say like, okay, so Adele, like she was never anything that was like groundbreaking necessarily. It was just people had gotten used to not hearing people sing for real, and so I think a big part of her success is that the songs seem genuine, and so people can connect to the emotion in it, which is lacking in a lot of pop music because there isn't any,
right?
Because it's manufactured. And then the pop star is like, well, it's emotional to me. It's like, yeah, but you didn't write it, and your lyrics are bad, and you're bad at expressing emotions.
Yeah.
But whatever. But so there's that. But then, like, the new song, when I first heard it, I was kind of like, same shit. But the chorus surprised me a little bit. It's a little different than some of the stuff on the previous ones. There's still variation within the style. But then at the same time, I was still kind of like, well, okay, so this is still decent, right? It's not a bad song, but it is still very much the same thing as the last couple albums.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
already hearing like 3 hits in my head, and the choruses have this kind of trend.
Yeah, exactly. So at a certain point, right, you're like, well, there's the sort of global context.
Yeah.
There's the chronological context. There's the sort of genre or style context. And then there's like the individual artist context too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So that's probably as much sense as I can make on that.
That's a lot of sense to me.
All right.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on iTunes or yourmusicisbad.com. Follow me on Twitter at @TheOneTrueMatt. Like us on Facebook, and we'll see you next time. I'm turning it off now.